Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. And like I said in the last video, I'm not sure how I'm going to structure my videos anymore. I might do current event talking events, but I'm trying to get away from that just because I'm kind of bored. But like I said, I do mathematical derivation literally every single day, pretty much all of my conscious waking hours. You've never met a mathematician that functions at the level that I do. Again, not to say that there's a gradation better or worse of a mathematician, but just in how prolifically I produce information. So I don't typically write down my work. I can just do it all in my head. Like literally since I've been a child, it's just always been able to take any problem and basically reduce it to be trivial. But what I'm going to do in the coming videos, again, just structure them however I feel like it. But I do research and I jump around from different subjects to different subjects. And so what I've done is I've written down some parts of my derivations from the past day. Includes mathematics, physics, biology, no really economics right now. But just my point is I don't stick to one subject. Once you prove or develop theory to the level that I have, you just kind of jump around to, again, what's true. You establish logical facts and then you make inferences and deductions to produce other facts. And then you always constantly look at the world around you and say, is this how the world actually functions, how it actually works? And so I'll probably chop these videos up into a couple parts, again, not into like a series, but just so they're not an hour long, try to keep them at 15-20 minutes, I don't know. But pretty much the same as my lecture series type videos. I just don't have my whiteboard, not that I really used it for much. But jumping around from subject to subject and just whatever insights or thoughts that have come to mind of different things and working on my derivation. And so the first thing I want to cover today is I want to review the telepathy tapes and more just the question, what is telepathy? Is telepathy real? And so the first thing we need to do to start off, I really don't like the word telepathy, like mental telepathy. Like the definition being I can take my thought, my insight, my information and put it into your brain. Basically saying, getting to a more philosophical point, people say, is free will real? Yes, free will is real. You make decisions for yourself. It's kind of one of those high flying questions that it's just kind of a mental circle jerk. But you do have free will, but it's axiomatically false within, again, what I've called vibrational information theory, which is really just demonstration of logic with language, which is just a conversation, which is just talking. But what was I saying? I just kind of trailed off there. But the axiom of infinite uniqueness, meaning we're all individual beings, and meaning we're all completely independent of one another. Which on forget science, math, any sort of formal logical argument, and it's very apparent we're different people. I can't think your thoughts, you can't think my thoughts. We are having an individual experience. Everyone lives their own life. But what is the telepathy tapes? It's just a podcast or a project run by, I think we touched on this a bit before. Again, it's been a year and a half since I really did videos, but by a researcher named Kai Dickens and another scientist, Dr. Diane Hennessy Powell. And they basically just document different life experiences and I don't know how to say it, just capacities and capabilities of specifically non-autistic or autistic nonverbal children, but really just the phenomenon is, can you send a signal that most people like, can you transmit information that isn't vocalized or isn't through some sort of code of symbols or manipulation? Can you really just send information via your mind? And telepathy, specifically telepathy, the reason I don't like the word telepathy is because to me that means, can you, without consent, without autonomy, can you put another thought into somebody else's brain? And the answer to that is no. demonstrably, empirically, and axiomatically. So they document these kids that have these abilities when they just use telepathy to communicate. And so, again, just trying to get some definitions. What is autism? And I don't like the word autism. I don't like the word smart. I don't like the word intelligence. I like the word awareness. And so there's things that exist, and you're either aware of them or you're not. Some people have more talents or skill sets or predispositions or proclivities to certain disciplines, to certain attributes, to certain capacities. And just like, some people are born taller. Some people are born with a broader diaphragm and thicker vocal cords, so their vocal range is a lot lower, regardless if they're a male or female, or if they're 6 foot or 5 foot, and so on and so forth. And so autism is just what most people have identified as the mental deficiency in intelligence, what people would call intelligence. The new kind of development is through the telepathy tapes and just research in general is that they're more focusing on what they call apraxia, which is just a disconnect between your motor functions and your brain activity, meaning you want to move your arm up and down, and you just have some disconnect between there, making it difficult to function. Hence, their sporadic movements in some autistic people and erratic behaviors. Again, what is telepathy? Putting a thought into someone else's brain. And then what is a savant? Because a lot of them talk on being a savant. And so savant, you can be non-verbal, telepathic, and autistic, or you can be telepathic. I mean, telepathy, again, the reason I like telepathy is because people hear that and they immediately hear just like science fiction or fringe science or whatnot, but the mechanisms of what people would identify as telepathy, I guarantee you every single person has experienced to some level or another. But a savant typically being defined or recognized as a really young child that is extremely prolific, at a discipline, or actually I would say that's more even to a prodigy level, a child that can learn really quickly, to like an expert or professional level or world-class level. Savant being more so having skill or knowledge of something you didn't formally learn, but that's just an extensive deductive capacity. And so I can speak on these things pretty intimately because I know, like I said, I'm a linguistic savant, as well as I also have what's called synesthesia, which a lot of these other people have as well, which is another kind of phenomenon other people have as well to an extent. Everybody has it to an extent. It's just different in different people, more pronounced in different people in the same ways people are born with different hair color, eye color, height, weight, stuff like that. But a savant is somebody who has acquired the capacity or knowledge that they haven't been formally taught or exposed to. A prodigy is someone who develops a skill set really, really quickly at a young age. And so you can be a savant and not be a child. You can be an adult, you can be a child, you can be whatever. And then just, you can watch there's a bunch of, Kai Dickens and Diane Hennessy Powell have appeared on a ton of different podcasts now. And they once you start getting on to all these different podcasts, they have the same type of conversation, but these are all kind of in response to different points they would talk on there. But they say one thing that's jumped out at me is they called socializing on the hill in other moments of enlightenment awareness, or awareness increasing, such as meditation, community bonding, psychedelic substance experiences, religious experiences, or near-death experiences. And then autistic kids describing reality being more than 3 dimensions. And so this place called the Hill, there is an awareness. And so when I say I'm even more so of a linguistic savant than I am language. And so it's like saying everyone goes to school to study business, as opposed to people can go to school to study business or mathematics, or physics, or biology, or art, or music, or whatever. So not all people that go to business study this, or go to school study business. Not all people that go to business school study the same aspects of business. Some people do mergers and acquisitions, some people do tax law, some people do finance, some people do private equity, so on and so forth. And so my kind of flavor of this synesthesia and the derivation rate is, it's been going on literally since I've been forming memories. And so it's more of, and just to give you a concrete example, like it's more informative and useful to me to listen to a language that I don't know entirely semantically, meaning like if I listen to Bulgarian, I don't understand the words, but I can hear the differences in all of the different sounds. And so then I can logically extend, and we'll talk about further on, again, this will be chopped up into different parts. I don't know what the titles will be, but we'll get to the kind of overall structure of logic in this kind of, in these videos. Like, again, we've already talked about these things, but we're trying to refine the arguments, and I'll explain why. But my flavor of this synesthesia and savant syndrome is just, anytime I hear, it's really logic, and it manifests through language, which is represented linguistically. So if I just sit here by myself, I get information. If I talk to somebody, your posture, your body language, which way, how you sit, your posture, like all your typical body language cues, then in addition to what words you pick, how you say them, your tone, your emphasis, what side of your mouth curls when you lie, or not even when you lie, when you pronounce a word you don't understand, or when you use a word incorrectly and you're thinking about correcting yourself. And so natural conversation is the most ripe pit for me, or for really anybody, to get information, but certainly for any linguist, anyone who studies language, and then for me, really the logic that is transmitted through language. It will tell you that a natural conversation is the most poignant way to learn about somebody or learn about something. And so I could just be by myself, I'm learning something. I could be talking to somebody else, I'm learning something. I could be watching YouTube, a TV show, because TV show is it's just somebody else writing in a fictional context. I could be out in nature. And so the information that you can process and understand and integrate into your own vocabulary and understanding is extremely profound. And it's probably, like obviously I do mathematics as well, but pure mathematics is probably the only other thing that you can really become a savant at, or even, because like if you're a musical prodigy, you still have to develop the dexterity to fret the guitar or the violin or whatever instrument you're playing. But mathematics and linguistics to me is really the same thing. Or the entirety of mathematics is a subset of linguistics to me. But right, those are before you even come out of your mother's womb, you're hearing sounds and starting to begin to process the world through vibrations and through the auditory system and through feeling, like physical feeling of things of vibrating. And so where you have to develop the dexterity of your fingers to play an instrument, you still have to develop your vocal cords to be able to articulate the sounds, but you're getting bombarded with this information. It's the only discipline, it's the first discipline you could really master, because you have to learn everything, right? You're born a blank slate, whatever philosopher said that back in the day, and then the first thing you get exposed to really is, in generality, vibration, but in terms of an individual skill somebody can master, it is language. At least in terms of the commonly recognized savant skills or prodigy skills, music, mathematics, drawing, whatever else you want to find. And so, back to the hill point, when they're saying they're socializing on the hill, it's just a level of awareness. It's not really something like I don't know when they say have access to the hill. Like I have an awareness of basically everything, kind of, but so does everybody. You know, I'm not trying to make this like a trippy philosophical thing. Again, this is more just me free flowing what I do, and then I formalize what I have formalized into my paper, into my more formal lectures. But certainly you have awareness of people in the same way you can be reading a Reddit post or reading something someone you know and you cared about has read before, or wrote you like a personal birthday card, I don't know, from a family member, and you read it in their tone, right? You're aware of them, you've interacted with them, you kind of, project their being or their presence or their voice into your head because you've interacted with them and they wrote it. And so once you develop an awareness of somebody, it never kind of goes anywhere. And so it's a kind of a mixture of that, and they're still kids describing the world around them. So do they have these capacities? Are they real? Absolutely. But are they still, kids developing and going through puberty? Absolutely. And so when they talk about, there's a lot of them, they'll call them, again, the psionic abilities, or again, it just depends on what case by case, or again, ability by ability. If I think and I don't think anybody's lying. I just think that, I know that people can misdescribe things, but I know for the most part all of this stuff is real. But what was I gonna say? Oh, when they start to develop, like they talk about like spiritual gifts, where they say they see ghosts, or they see angels, or they see auras. Again, everything kind of glows. Like I see auras, but so does everybody. I mean, it's just like if you go take a camera lens and make it go out of focus, and then turn the lens so it goes in focus. I mean, everybody has that kind of glow or that aura to them, but that's not even like everybody sees that. That's not that's not specific. But we'll talk about like they go to another dimension. There's I'll get to that in the physics aspects of this, which again we'll cover a bunch of different subjects in this. And this is already going to be way longer than I thought. But anytime anybody says there's more than 3 dimensions, the answer is no. And so when you have an autistic, non-speaking autistic kid, saying these things, there's also, you can't forget, in the speciality that I've proven, the desire to differentiate, we can't discount the feel-good aspect of people want to also be like, these kids get a voice for the first time, which they do, but it's not like some magical experience or some mythical thing or some, kumbaya story. And so, I mean, they're still kids, part of society. So when they say that they're experiencing more than 3 dimensions, no, they're not. And neither is any physicist down at MIT or Harvard or Ohio State. They're not doing physics in more than 3 dimensions. It doesn't mean anything. And so the saying there's more than 3 dimensions, no. Saying they get downloads, that's just what I would consider a realization, and what anybody watching this would consider a realization, a light bulb moment. You've encountered some reality in life, whether it be a mundane fact, whether it be something more profound, whether it be something in between, whether it just be something practical, to get a job, to make a friend, to fix a toilet, whatever. And you're thinking about something, and then aha, then it all makes sense, and you can get something done. And so that's what a download would just be, a realization. And that's just anybody else just processing information to make sense of interactions and occurrences that you've experienced. So nothing really shocking there. Again, saying they meet people on the hill, it's just a personification of being aware of other people. I guess it's hard to explain, but I do have some access. I don't like saying it like that, but I get what they're saying. But it's a little, to me, it's still adolescent to describe it that way. I don't know. Again, not trying to be mean. It just seems a little off. But then we also have this is not even so much to the. That was really all I wanted to cover with the telepathy tapes. Is just that it is real, pretty much everything they say, but they also exaggerate, and there's still people going through puberty and growing up, and they're still immersed in the analogies and metaphors that anybody else would use. But they also talk about getting this kind of awareness levels changing, or access, or seeing a white light, having your life flash before your eyes, seeing what really matters, putting your priorities in straight once you have a near-death experience. So physical versus psychological near-death experience. The physical near-death experience typically induces the psychological death, and this is what Freud identified readily as the ego death, just what you perceive as yourself, and how, the 1500s or whatever was the center of, the heliocentric or the geocentric, whatever. Galileo saying, or couldn't say, that the Earth wasn't the center of the solar system. And so in that same sense, Freud articulated, I think he was probably one of the most, in terms of encapsulating the most poignant scientific facts, I think Freud was probably more developed than physicist. And again, it just personally my favorite scientist. But what a psychological death is, an ego death, is what Freud described. But it's just forced realization by removing privilege, right? We have a society where we're extremely privileged in relation to all of history before it. And you can obviously find exceptions, but on the large scale, more people have more social structure, which includes more safety than ever before. And so you don't have to rely, most people, at least in developed countries, don't have to hunt for their own food or pick their own berries or clean their own water or whatever. Certainly there's a lot of people that still have to fetch water as necessity, but again, you get the point. And so then in a blink of an eye, someone speeds past you and you're walking and almost runs you over, and then you're forced to realize that, of no fault of your own, that person could have plowed through you and run you over, and your road pizza in 2 seconds. And so that physical realization of, you can die any second, nothing's guaranteed, forces you into the present, forces you into stop daydreaming about the future, or reminiscing, or not even reminiscing, just overthinking the past, good or bad. And so, I covered that. And then what is an out-of-body experience? I've never experienced one. That verbiage does not mean anything to me, nor does it pair up intuitively to any behavioral demonstration I've seen. And what was this again? Out-of-body experience? Yeah, I think that's just people using the wrong words for different types of realization. How does synesthesia manifest for me? That's what I talked about through language. And so again, like I said, I respond to the structure of language because of the sound and because of physical systems' desire order. You can predict the next sound based off the previous sounds. And there's a set amount of sounds, phonetics, the human diaphragm, vocal cords, and mouth can articulate and give within a given vibrational range, a given frequency channel, and then we can pass that. I think it's 26 phonemes that the human being can make, unique sounds a human being can make, and then you can say logically basically anything you want. And so processing logic is automatic for me. And so, like I said, when I hear somebody talk, if they say something correctly, I immediately get the logic. If they say something incorrectly, but they're intuitively thinking the right thing, I'll get it immediately. If they say the wrong thing and mean the wrong thing, I will still get information based off of what words they used to say the wrong thing and why they said that. And this all happens without me asking them anything. It just pops up into my brain. And so, again, I do have some color and taste synesthesia, but just my smell and for what is synesthesia, just, you have senses, which I to me they're all kind of like combined. But in general, I think there's only two, right? You can touch things, or you can. I forget the other one. It was again like 4 or 5 years ago. I did a lecture on it. But regardless, it's like I described it as like having synesthesia if your senses weren't broken. That doesn't sound right. If they were combined, but you could tell or if they were differentiated, but you could tell they wanted to be combined, I guess. Simply meaning synesthesia, all your senses kind of combine at once. You have different input channels: your eyes, your ears, your nose, your feet, your hands, and then one brain, and then you make coordinated responses to your body because of that. And so what was I saying about me personally? And then it gets me all twisted up in my head, just like trying to talk about me or talk about science in general. Oh goodness, I forget what I was saying. Oh, but to the language. And so the most obvious thing is when people say something logically incorrect, not morally wrong, not ethically wrong, just something logically inconsistent. It's an automatic response. I don't have to think about it, practice it. It just happens. It's like someone saying 1 + 1 = 3. It's like just no. The answer is no to that. And I can do that with like entire logical structures. And the amount. So that's. I guess I'll probably cut it off there because this is gonna be way longer than I thought. I already have 5 pages written, and that's like half of the first. Again, some of this might sound ethereal or kind of, I don't want to say out there in terms of like crazy, but out there in terms of like you're like what is he saying? I mean, it's just hard to articulate what synesthesia is and what these different levels of awareness are to people that haven't really experienced them. But like I said, anybody has experienced these things. Like when people say, right, the whole reason Jinx, you owe me a soda, when people say the same thing at the exact same time, right? It's because their thoughts kind of synced up. They became a telepathic channel and kind of, oh, I knew you were going to say that. And they say it at the exact same time that you were going to say that. That's linking up. That's experiencing telepathy and synesthesia. And then what's another one? All right. Thank you. That was on the tip of my tongue. I was just about to say that. All right. That's all predicting words in a logical sequence based on what they say. You know, especially if you know the person personally and they're talking about something that you both experienced. You'll use the same words to describe the same experience. So that's all for now. We will pick it up tomorrow, and the videos will come out whenever I can get them uploaded. So thanks for watching, and see you on the next one.